everyone, and thank you for joining today's session about community colleges and data analytics. My name is Steve Wyken. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Data Intelligent, and today we're going to talk to you about a couple things. We'll start off with, I'll go over the challenges facing higher education. Then Debbie Phelps, who's the Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness at Colleague College, and Larry Blackburn, our Chief Solution Officer here at Data Intelligent, we'll talk about how Colleague College is using data to address these challenges. And finally, Larry will end by talking about ways institutions can accelerate their data analytics maturity. Let me start first with talking about challenges facing higher education. And I want to start first by going back in time a little bit pre-COVID. At that time, there was a lot of discussion about the student loan crisis, and students and their parents, et cetera, were starting to question whether or not college was worth it. Were they really getting a return on their investment? This was happening at the same time that it was forecasted that high school graduations, the number of students graduating from high school, will start declining over the next decade. And why this is important is that's the traditional pool of students or potential students that colleges look to keep their enrollment going. And we started seeing this before COVID. We started seeing some changes in enrollment, some decreases here year over year. This slide here shows you the I highlighted those 3 years pre-COVID roughly, and you can see here enrollment had already starting to decline across all sectors of higher ed. Now, since COVID, things have obviously changed here. So if you look at post-secondary education, enrollment is down significantly. If you look at year over year for this past spring, it's down about 4%. If you look at total number of students as far as enrolled, if you look at spring 2022 versus 2 years previously, 1.3 million less students are enrolled this year as they were 2 years ago. When we dig a little deeper into what happened with community colleges, the numbers are even more drastic here. You can see the change year over year is about 8% as far as a decrease in spring enrollment, and about 800,000 less students are enrolled in spring versus 2 years past. So a pretty big drop here. And again, if we keep digging a little deeper, if you look at the fall enrollment numbers, retention rates, persistent rates, enrollment for first-time students, as well as groups like Black, Hispanic, Native Americans, all saw a pretty significant decrease in numbers here. And the reasons are many. Some of them here, as we look at a prospective community college student, is obviously COVID brings a lot of uncertainties to their lives. And this, I think, is causing them to be hesitant to enroll in community college or any higher ed institution. They have questions around the cost and the value of higher ed. That hasn't gone away. They may have increased family and child demands as, you know, especially when we're in the heart of the pandemic, people had a shelter in place, stay at home. But even since we've come out of the pandemic to a degree, the child care agencies and workers, there's less of them around. So it's harder to find people to help with your kids or your family here. Also, too, the move to online instruction has presented a barrier for some students because they may lack the technical equipment, a laptop, PC, or the bandwidth, the Wi-Fi, in order to connect to these programs. This in turn leads to a lack of connectedness, feeling of connectedness to that school. Because most of their courses are taken online now, a lot of students don't have the opportunity to go on campus and really have the true college experience, which builds that kind of loyalty and connection to that school. That probably in turn leads to the issues we're having with retention and persistence. Go back to here. And the reason this is important for everyone to keep in mind is higher education is still one of the main pathways to success in this country. The unemployment rates and the lifetime earnings of college graduates are much better than those who do not attend or complete college here. So it's very important for folks to be successful that higher ed is a viable option for them. So when we think about community colleges, what questions they're trying to answer using data usually fall in one of these three buckets. When we look at enrollment, they're trying to figure out how do they improve the recruitment of students, and they, more importantly, where are those new opportunities they need to look at, especially since the traditional pool of prospective students, high school grads, is decreasing. From a retention standpoint, once they get those students on campus, how do we proactively identify students at risk for leaving? How do we intervene before they make that decision not to re-enroll? And relatedly, how do we improve the engagement, especially if we're doing mostly online learning? How do we get them more engaged with our institution and improve that retention? And finally, they need a tool to help with budget because things are changing. Enrollment's changing, state funding's changing, et cetera. How do we forecast for changes in funding so we can adjust revenues to meet budget? All these things they're trying to address, and they need data to do that. So at this point, let me stop, and I want to turn it over to Larry and Debbie, who will talk a little bit more about these issues, specifically how Cowley College is addressing them.
Thanks, Steve. In this section, as you can see, we're going to get some information on how a small Kansas community college is taking big steps down the road to data maturity. I'm Larry Blackburn. I am the Chief Solutions Officer for Datatilligent, and presenting with me today is Debbie Phelps, the Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness at Cowley College. So we're off to see the wizard.
Thanks, Larry. It's great to be with you again. Thanks for inviting us to share the story of our partnership with you. Cowley College is a publicly funded two-year community college, and we're located in South Central Kansas. In 2018, we realized we had significant organizational needs that negatively impacted the support we provide to our students. And these needs included better data governance, increased data literacy, more efficient ways of creating meaning from multiple data sources, and developing a set of tools so data is our first step for decision making. So you might be wondering, what magic wand did we wave to meet all the milestones on this journey? Okay, Larry, really, we just got back to the basics. First, we created a cross-departmental knowledge management team to increase awareness of how data was being entered and stored to improve data quality, along with looking at how easy it was for our users to access that data so they could use it to make improvements. We then invested in Tableau licensing and training as part of our 2018 strategic plan to create user-friendly dashboards for common campus tasks like program review, retention analysis, and federal and state data submission reviewing. We recognized that the timelines for our needs and our development of Tableau creators didn't match up. And so in 2019, we invested in a partnership with Datatilligent and eventually with Snowflake. And so today we're beginning to see a move from after the fact to just-in-time decision-making. So now I'm going to turn it over to the interesting stuff that Larry has to share. And he's going to show you how Datatilligent helped us move to a more predictive model for intrusive advising.
Great, thanks, Debbie. So what I'm going to do throughout the presentation with Debbie is to walk through the solutions that we have developed with her and her team at Cowley and really help them advance their use of data. So the first one we want to talk about is their student risk assessment for retention. And so what I'm going to do is walk you through the different sections of the solution and highlight some of the features of the solution. So at the top, all of our solutions you'll see have multiple filters so that you can basically use the solution to query your data and then have different views of the data. So the goal of this solution is to give the advisors and other student support staff a single source of data in order to identify students that are at risk of retention. And in this data, we've actually combined data from both Zanzibar and Smarter Measures data. So then moving to the next section, we've got some key metrics that we want to visualize and have up front to look at trends across different metrics. So you can see we want to look at metrics for first generation, if students are fully online, the ethnicity, non-traditional, and if students are on academic probation, which is a factor for student retention. And then in the bottom section, we've got a detailed table of students, and what we have in the table is that we have various data points that help understand how the students are at risk for retention. So we'll talk later about, we do have a risk score, and then we have different other variables. So we can use multiple variables to understand the student risk, and these are those variables. And then on the right side, we in this solution, we allow the advisors or other support staff to then follow up with the students and track that in the solution, right? So we can indicate whether they've been contacted in the first 30 days, whether they have an advising appointment, what type of advising appointment. And then another important factor is to look at whether they're enrolled next term. And then this just gives you, the last column gives you an overall summary, whether they're at risk or not at risk for retention. And we like our solutions to always be, so that you have the ability to take action. And so one of the key features of this is that if you click on a student, you have different actions that you can take. You can email the student, you can email the advisor, you can go to a detail page, which I'll cover in a minute, and then also set those flags that I just mentioned on the right side. So then when you click on a student, you get there's some detailed information that you can now see on the student. You can see some details about the student. You see their course history and performance, their GPA, both cumulative and semester, and then you can see what their risk score is. And this also shows at the bottom the variables of that risk score, and we indicate with the plus if those variables are included in the risk score. And so you can see here, if you take the pluses and add them up, and GPA actually gets a additional score to add up to the 8 in the risk score. And then at the bottom, we also include the Smarter Measures data, which is the surveys that the students take on their experience. And we also indicate if those are also a factor in their retention, and look at certain variables that may indicate risk of retention for the student. So some of the ways that this solution has helped the team at Cowley, again, this gives them one view. The advisors have one view where they can see and assess the students that they need to follow up on. And by doing this outreach early, then they can reach out and help guide the students earlier in the semester instead of waiting until later. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back to Debbie to kind of introduce the next set of solutions.
So Larry was right. Our first project on campus has been a great success. Faculty love it, and so do our professional staff advisors. They love it too. But we recognized that if we were going to become more efficient, we had to stop doing some things. We had to stop assuming that everyone on our campus has a mature data skill set. We have to reduce inconsistencies in data understanding and present data in ways that communicate key performance results clearly. We had to stop the "this can't be done" mindset and instead ask ourselves, how can we do this when it comes to multiple data sources? We also realized that Tableau was much more than pretty pictures, that it could help us accomplish tasks more quickly, more efficiently. We're striving to make work more enjoyable. What are the things that we love to do all day? It's spend time with students. It's not a day spent querying data to pull it from multiple sources, to then spend time putting all of those reports together, using VLOOKUP, if you're someone who knows how to do that, and then looking at a spreadsheet and trying to decide, what does it all mean? So the next two dashboards that Larry is going to show you shows how we're using data from multiple screens and canned reports, and how this all came together for our TRIO Student Success Program and our online course instructors. This mindset change is allowing us to create ways to intervene on behalf of solutions. And so I think you're going to enjoy seeing the creativity that we are generating in meeting student needs.
So continuing the theme of supporting students in their success, we identified that there's an opportunity to look at students' financial health. And so with this solution, the goal is to look at the overall financial state of our students and their financial, and if students who are at risk of being on financial hold or need follow-up to resolve if they are on financial hold, and also get ahead of it, right? So we understood that there was a lot of manual work to pull this information together so that students don't end up in that situation, which does prevent them from continuing on at Cowley. So as Debbie said, we are pulling together in one view that you can see here, this information so they can take action. So let me walk you through the different sections. Again, at the top, you can see we have multiple filters, again, so that whoever is using the solution can stay on the screen, look at different populations of students and different ways to query the student data by using these various filters. So you can look it up by advisor, if they're on hold, if they're at risk on being hold, and then some other factors such as if they are a athlete getting financial or federal aid, or even on collections, we can find those students. And then the middle section gives some key metrics just to kind of monitor the overall state of students and the aggregate amounts, so we can kind of understand the big picture. Looking at the total term balance, right? What's due and for that term, how much is on hold, and the number of students, and then how many students are at risk of being hold, right? So again, we want to be proactive on those students, and then looking at how much is in collections. So then the bottom section, we have a table of those students. So we list out for each student, again, those key variables for that student that would help us identify those students who we need to follow up with. And then as you click on a student on the left, you'll get their detail on the right. And then it helps the team at Cowley to really identify those students that they need to follow up on. And then the big thing, again, we want our solutions so that they can take action. What they said was, hey, once we get all of the filters set and we identify the students that we want to contact, I want to be able to email right from this list. And so we actually provide that functionality. You can take action. If you click on that button, it actually produces a list in a format so that you can import that into your email program directly from the solution. So, and as Debbie alluded to earlier, right? So what we've heard back is that instead of pulling data from various reports, which is what they had to do, several sources, and then go through the process of matching that data, then that would take a lot of time. So we've eliminated all of those steps to now where they can just focus on what action do I need to take, right? So a lot of efficiencies have been gained by this report. again, it allows them to support the students from a financial perspective. The next solution is a solution then to, for their TRIO program, a way to identify prospective students for their TRIO program. And so again, at the top, we've identified some key data points. And again, based on those filters, can kind of query the list of prospective students with using the different filters to then again have that view that they need for who are the prospective students that we should be focused on. And so you can look at those. And then in the middle, again, some key metrics to understand what that looks like for them, what the population of prospective students for their TRIO program looks like across some of these important factors, right, for the TRIO program, such as documented disability, whether they're first generation, and then some of the remedial math and English, and then the GPA. So they can kind of see that at a glance. And then again, at the bottom, we have then a detailed list of those students with all of those data points for each student. So then again, they can see where they can take action on those students for the TRIO program. And we know that's important because to continue funding, they want to show that they can continue to grow the program. If the numbers decline, there's the risk of getting funding decreased. So it's important to really identify the pipeline of students for the TRIO program and again, help them have success in college. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back to Debbie. Whoops, sorry. So the next solution we have is then also looking at student engagement and looking at Blackboard data. And so the goal of this solution is to, again, provide a view in one place versus multiple views to show the students' engagement in one view using Blackboard and how they're engaged using that online tool. So again, at the top here, we can filter on the instructor, the course ID, the section, the subject, term, and academic year, right? To really zero in on the actual courses and then how students are doing in those courses. And then the middle section, again, we've got some key metrics to help us understand the students' engagement with Blackboard and looking at the activity, especially understanding if certain students have no activity, how many do we have there, assignments, exams, discussion boards. So those metrics give us an overall picture of the level of engagement and therefore the effectiveness of Blackboard for Cowley. And in the middle section or the bottom section, we can see we've filtered for one course. For that course, we can now see all the metrics and also some trends using the line charts to see the engagement on that course. So maybe there's a specific course that you want to really zero in on and make sure that the students are being effective with Blackboard. And then at the bottom section, we have the students listed and their level of engagement. So again, allows you to take action to do outreach perhaps to these students where you're seeing maybe a low level of activity, late assignments, missing assignments, exams, missing exams, right? And then also because, especially in the online courses, you want to see that engagement with the discussion board. So you can see all of that in one view. Okay, so then I'm going to turn it back to Debbie to talk about how they're looking to the future from here.
Thanks, Larry. So I have to say, nothing makes my day more enjoyable than to have a colleague tell me that they used one of the dashboards that we've created with Data Intelligent and how it has made their life easier, how it it really makes them feel like they're making a difference in individual students' lives because they're able to intercede in a quicker fashion. So how are we advancing? Well, during the spring of the 2020-2021 academic year, our knowledge management team looked into options for a data lake to advance data maturity. And it was reasoned that a local solution would be costlier as a long-term strategy. It wouldn't offer a solution that would house external data easily, and the risk of a breach in data privacy was much higher for us. We also had some other key points in our thinking. We wanted to reduce the strain on our student information system. We realized that as we increase the number of Tableau users on our campus, if all of our dashboards were directly funneling the information from the SIS, that would slow down operations for the organization as a whole. We also wanted to integrate more external data sets so that we could triangulate the data and increase effectiveness. Currently, with the help of Data Intelligent, we've been able to bring in data like Smarter Measure, the survey that Larry talked about earlier. We've also added Census Bureau population statistics, Kansas Department of Labor information, Department of Education, K-12 annual head counts, student tracker files from the National Student Clearinghouse, and of course, that LMS course data. The last thing is we wanted to store snapshot data responsibly. And so we chose Snowflake to partner with. So in the next screen, Larry's going to show you the nuts and bolts of what goes on behind the scenes and how we're making our dashboards run efficiently.
So the solutions that we reviewed today are enabled by what we call the Cali Unified Data Platform. And this was key to their data maturity because it gives us a platform for bringing in lots of data sources and then enabling those solutions. And so this enables them for not only what we've done already, but also growth in the future as they think about additional data sources and solutions. So what I'm going to do is walk you through the parts of the data platform, and you can see in the middle, Snowflake is sort of the place where all of this data is stored and integrated. And if you're not familiar with Snowflake, it's a cloud data platform, so it's all in the cloud. There's no physical on-site infrastructure. Makes it very easy to start up and use. It's a on-demand compute and storage, so it grows with you. You can start small and then grow the compute power and the storage as your needs grow. So it's very flexible. And also important to note that it also meets data privacy requirements that we have in higher ed. And so they have ensured that protection of the student data. Within Snowflake, then, the approach that we use to bring in data sources, multiple data sources, and then make them available for the solutions is what we call a data lake approach. And this is different than the traditional data warehouse approach, where you're doing a lot of work to transform the data and manipulate the data as you bring it in, which can take a lot of time. So the data lake approach actually streamlines the approach in that we actually identify all the data sources, both internal, external, bring that data in what we call pipelines to then just connect to that data source and load the data, right, without doing any transformations. And then what we do is after we bring in those data sources, we then can create specific data sets for those solutions that you see here. And you can keep creating multiple data sets off of those data sources without having to build a new pipeline from those data sources. And so you just can keep building additional data sets on that data. And then again, this is much more flexible, lower maintenance, and we're able to do this pretty quickly. The solutions that we reviewed today, we've done in about a year and a half, I believe, working with Callie. We've been able to bring in all of the data sources that you see on the left, both internal and external, and bring that into the Snowflake data platform to feed all these solutions. So pretty easy. And then finally, on the pipeline side, what we are using is Tableau. And if you are already using Tableau, you may be familiar with this, but we use Tableau Prep and then another tool called Data Management. And those tools allow us to develop those data pipelines from those sources and then load that data into the data lake. And then data management, which is another Tableau component, it allows us to automatically schedule those updates. So we have that automation all the way from the source to the solution. Okay, so then I'm going to turn it back to Debbie to close out and talk about what they're looking at for the future.
Thanks, Larry. Before we end, I'd like to again say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share our story. And I hope that you saw something today that can spark a conversation about how you can improve how you're using data on your campus. The question that I'm asked the most frequently after sharing our story is, how did you do this? How did you convince the leadership on your campus that investing in tools like Tableau and partnerships like the ones that we have with Snowflake and Datatilligent are future thinking and necessary for your organization to survive in today's higher education landscape? And so I have just 4 key steps here that I used. The first one was, how ready are you? How ready is your institution to make change? Are there events in your past or maybe coming up in your future that will help you better advocate to meet this need? For us, some of it came from feedback from the Higher Learning Commission, our accrediting agency. They told us, you're using data, but we think you could do better at it. And they're coming to visit in a few years, and we want to show them that we took it seriously. We also have a culture with a strong desire to serve students. And that is a desire that is strong enough from leaders who are willing to commit resources. Identify the key stakeholders on your campus. If you are a one-person office like myself, or even 2 or 3, realize that you can't do this on your own. You know who your data people are. They might not work in your office, but they recognize the value of data, and they can be a strong support and help you message out. Take those people and create a communication plan. Plan out very carefully how you're going to talk about this with leaders, with other external stakeholders. Maybe you have a board of trustees like we do, and how you'll talk to other staff so they welcome this change instead of fearing it. And then finally, create some excitement. I know it might sound corny, but we like to do fun things, give out data prizes, and try to create just an excitement with a message that always says, using data is going to make your life better and make our students more successful. So again, thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for sharing your story and allowing us to help you and Callie advance your data maturity. If you would like to follow up with Debbie and have any questions, her information is on the screen, so feel free to reach out to her. I'm going to move to the next section and talk about how you can accelerate your data analytics maturity just as Callie did. When we talk about data analytics maturity, we did some research and came up with a model that shows there are different levels of maturity and we've seen this when we work with different organizations that are at different levels of maturity, and the last step in the maturity model is to be data-driven. So let me walk through each of these levels. And so a lot of organizations may be starting out at the first level, which is data aware. And that's where you're using manual, non-standard reports, and decisions are rarely driven by data. Moving up the model, then the next level is data proficient. And here you are using standardized reporting and using a reporting platform. However, data is used only for awareness purposes and looking more at the historical data rather than using it to make decisions. Moving closer to being data-driven, we call the next level data savvy, and here using data to make some business decisions. However, often that data is inconsistent and often in silos. And then the last phase of the maturity model is to be data-driven. And here we're using data-first thinking, and all systems and people are working together to make the most effective and efficient use of data. So coming back to then the definition of being data-driven, it's first, data-first thinking, data where data is embedded into all business and decision-making processes. All systems and people are working together to make the most effective and efficient use of data. We've done some additional research on the concept of being data-driven, and there was a paper written by the three organizations you see at the bottom. And in that paper, we identified 3 key principles to be a data-driven college. I'll go through each of these and then describe these in more detail. The first principle is make data analytics transformational. Second, invest what you can. And third, establish a unified approach. Making data analytics transformational. What that means is that the data is connected to the institutional mission for results that matter to students, faculty, and staff. You want to tailor the approach to the institution's mission, culture, organization structure, and analytics maturity. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And then finally, you want to develop a blueprint for building a data-driven organization that fits your needs. So we've done this with several organizations and have come up with a approach for a blueprint to be a data-driven organization. And in that blueprint, we include these 4 objectives. The first one is to understand your critical business strategies and timelines, your vision for data analytics and what that looks like for your organization, understanding your current data analytics capabilities, and then creating a blueprint for that data-driven organization. The second principle, invest what you can. Here we want to use an iterative approach with smaller wins that return immediate value, and focus on solutions that bring high value, and then also invest in a balance of cost-effective and timely capabilities. Because of that principle, we felt like we needed a different way to offer our solutions and approach. And so we have come up with a new way that we call Data Analytics as a Service. And this is a subscription-based service. And what customers have told us is that because of this approach, one is that we're fast, quick time to value. We can deliver results often in the first 90 days. And we're very flexible and agile in our approach, so we can adapt to those changing needs. Secondly, we are enabling your data maturity, and so that you can include data in your strategic planning. And then lastly, we want to make it easy and provide that comprehensive solution for all of your needs, and then that allows you to focus on analysis. And then included in the Data Analytics as a Service are these 3 things for that subscription. One, you get solution templates that I'll talk about in a minute, both analytic and data solutions. You get operations partnership, so that we are your operations partner for your data and analytics operations, any software licensing and management, and then also managing that unified data platform. And then finally, under partnership, because of our subscription-based service, we can then be your partner. We can provide that blueprint or maturity roadmap. And then our focus is to be successful with you. And so we develop a customer success plan. The final principle is establish a unified approach. So to take a unified approach, you want to remove silos and expect that collaboration will happen across the institution. You want to empower those on the front lines with access to data and tools so that they can make decisions when they need to with that data. And then finally, you want to make data a strategic asset for the organization by bringing it into a unified data platform. What we mean by unified data platform is that all of the data sources that you have that we show on the left, both internal and external, can be brought into a single data analytics platform. And in that platform, we have the data is stored in Snowflake, which is a cloud data platform. Then you use a tool called Tableau to then build those solutions. And at Datatilligent, we have solution engines or templates to then quickly implement those solutions so that your users on the right can get access to data. And we build and manage all of that. So talking a little bit more about those solution engines, we have a suite of solution engines that cover these 5 areas of your college. And we have our solutions cover everything from admissions enrollment, student success retention, teaching and learning effectiveness, finance and operations, and advancement. Again, these are quick start templates that get you going quickly on your solutions. And finally, I want to close with an example long-term roadmap for your own maturity. And this is an example of how you might progress through the different levels of the maturity model. And in each of the years, you're building your capabilities. In your first year, you might just be enabling that data access and integration, implementing that data platform, and then implementing those data solutions. And then each year, you're expanding those solutions and capabilities and expanding adoption so that you're getting that adoption across the institution to be then data-driven. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening to our webinar today. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. My email's on the screen. And have a great day.